Part 58. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 571. Chapter 571 Great Revenge. Xia Moyan pushed her swing gently again. Xiaoling, do you know what fate is? My father told me that fate is the sea. Even if you can predict its flow, you cannot change its flow. You know that the storm is coming, so you can only do what you can. Just do a little bit of avoidance, and God alone will ultimately decide your life or death. I don't understand, Xiaoling said. Xia Moyan looked at her gently. The people you like, and the people who like you, each have their own destiny. You too, Xiaoling, God has already arranged who you will be with, and who you will be with, who we are with, cannot be changed by just a few people, so you don't have to worry too much. Will God arrange for me and Lilei to be together? Silly girl, Xia Moyan smiled. God's instructions, who knows? She was too close to him by blood, and he couldn't clearly see her fate. Along with it, he couldn't see clearly the fate of some people around her. Among them is Lilei. This just shows that they are deeply entangled people. But he did not intend to tell Xiaoling these words. There was a price to pay for having a glimpse of destiny. She was already in such a rough situation. It would not be good if she knew too much. Brother, I can take a walk with you tomorrow. What do you want to do? He said. Xiaoling felt a warm feeling in her heart. It turned out that her brother had really made a special trip to accompany her. She felt very ashamed. Before, she had unreasonably speculated that her brother was not close to her, but in fact, he was a closer relative than anyone else. She cheered up and said with a smile, I'm going shopping. Shopping, Xia Moyan said, okay. Why do you girls always behave the same when you are unhappy? Who else? Xiaoling asked curiously. Mom, Xia Moyan said, with a look of sadness on her usually calm face. My father was impatient to go shopping with her and always found excuses to hide out. It was just a pain for me and Pearl. By the way, Pearl's mom had a Persian cat. She had to be a follower every time. Xiaoling's smile became sweeter, and she seemed to be much closer to her mother, whom she had never met before. I also have a cat, she said. My name is Maduanzi. It's so fun. She told her brother about Mao Tuanzi. Xia Moyan listened tenderly and accompanied her off the swing and walked back to the villa. He made a potion of decoction for her to drink and said, this can make you sweat. If you go to bed early, your illness will be cured when you wake up tomorrow. Let's go shopping. Xiaoling curiously looked at the soup in the bowl, which was dark green and had finely chopped grass. What is this? She asked. This is the fruit produced by two 28-year-old bamboos in the year of your nirvana, Xia Moyan said. It is said that the phoenix will not eat anything but bamboo. It is good for you to eat some bamboo occasionally. Xiaoling. What does it mean to eat some bamboo occasionally? This is not a phoenix. Brother, do you think of me as a panda? I vomited silently in my heart, but still drank the potion obediently. Although the color of the soup looked terrible, the taste was surprisingly good, with a hint of sweetness refreshing her heart and spleen. She immediately felt less dizzy, as if her cold had been mostly cured immediately. It's amazing, she said. The more amazing thing is at the back, Xia Moyan said. This silly girl, do you think these two bamboo sticks are so easy to find? Bamboo only blooms and bears fruit once in its life, and its flowering period is unpredictable. It has always been a mysterious and difficult mystery in nature. And these two bamboo sticks must be consistent with her age at the time of nirvana. After learning of her death, he and his father traveled all over the world before finally finding the medicine in a primitive jungle and concocting the medicine according to an ancient secret recipe. How is it possible that it only has the effect of treating colds? What else is magical? Xiaoling asked. Xia Moyan said, you will know it soon. Seeing that he refused to say anything, Xiaoling didn't continue to ask. She put down the bowl obediently and went upstairs to rest. I slept well this time. When I woke up, it was already bright. My head was no longer dizzy. My whole body felt refreshed, as if I had never had a cold. The elder brother is the best. She was very happy and went downstairs to give her brother a hug. Xiaomoyan, who was pruning a plant in the yard, was stunned for a moment and hugged her gently. She is really similar to her mother, both are so clear and bright that people like her. Brother, what are you doing? Xiaoling looked at him curiously as he pruned and cut the leaves of the plants. The feng shui in the yard is a bit messy, let me sort it out for you. He didn't say much. He was doing something for his sister within his own ability. In fact, Xiaoling's fate is still very bad, full of ups and downs. Even if the feng shui of the courtyard is perfect, it can't resolve much, which is better than nothing. Xiaoling smiled brightly, brother is the most powerful. Wear the amulet carefully, Xiaomoyan warned her. The one Lilei gave me, she pulled out the amulet from her neck, I'm wearing it. What he said is always a lie. He bullied my parents and my brother are not around, so. Her eyes were slightly red. Xiaomoyan roughly knew what happened recently. The Li family held a blind date party, and Lilei sent Nangang Kinja home in the middle of the night. As Xiaoling's mother-in-law, he now feels very bad about his future brother-in-law, and is seriously considering whether to suggest that his sister finds someone else. Although Lilei may be your Wutong Mu, Xiaomoyan said, but he may not be the only Wutong Mu in this world. Who is he? He dares to make you suffer. I will help you avenge him. He's not a thing, no, I mean, Xiaoling was a little anxious and incoherent, don't take revenge on him. Xiaomoyan looked at her slowly, are you distressed? I don't feel bad, Xiaoling was very angry. Then let's take a small revenge. Xiaomoyan lowered his eyes and continued to prune the branches and leaves of the plants. The beautifully shaped tuberose and ivy became more ethereal in his hands, as if they had a vivid aura. Xiaoling asked, what is a small revenge? It's very simple, Xiaomoyan kept moving his hands and said lightly, let him have a car accident and become bankrupt or something. Mr. Li is already old. He went west a few years early, even though he would be injured. But there is no way to resolve it. Brother, Xiaoling was frightened, is this what you call a small revenge? Yes, Xiaomoyan was still very calm, as if he was talking about something as simple as eating and drinking water. Xiaoling went crazy, what if it's a big revenge? What a great revenge! This time, Xiaomoyan stopped pruning the flower branches and thought for 2 more seconds, it will be very complicated to set up the feng shui formation, and there are still a lot of materials to prepare. You have to give me some time. Theoretically speaking, the Li family can be ruined and destroyed forever. The men will be slaves for generations, and the women will be prostitutes for generations, oh, I mean they will be wage earners, mistresses, workers, and even beggars for the rest of their lives. Don't turn around. Xiaoling looked at her brother blankly. She now understood why so many people respected him and were afraid of him. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 572. Chapter 572. What qualifications do you have? Can you please stop taking revenge on the Li family, Xiaoling said. Really feel bad, Xia Mo said calmly. Xiaoling was anxious, brother. Okay, I won't tease you anymore. Xiaomoyan finished pruning the flower branches and put the tools back in the yard. Let's go, pack up, let's go shopping. Xiaoling said, you won't take revenge on the Li family. It is said that girls are outgoing, and it is true. Even before she married into the Li family, her heart was already towards others. The imperial master was a little unhappy, if you don't go out, I will really have time to do some tricks or something. Xiaoling hurriedly went to change clothes. She didn't know that revenge could not be that simple. Xiaomoyan could destroy people's lives, but there was a price to pay. If it wasn't for a blood feud, he wouldn't have resorted to such a method easily. He just said it to make her happy and let her know that her family will always protect her. But Xiaomoyan squinted her eyes and thought for a while. It wasn't like she couldn't help her sister a little. Here, he was meditating. Over there, Xiaoling had already changed her clothes and walked out. She was wearing a nice and low-key dress, with a silk scarf and sunglasses, revealing only her slender figure and delicate jaw. "Does it look good?" She turned around in front of her brother. "You look good no matter what you wear. The Imperial Master is very good at talking." This is all gained from the blood and tear experience of going shopping with his mother. As expected, women are all equally easy to coax, and I heard they are pretty. The smile on Xiaoling's face was bright, and she turned around again, and then she took his hand and said, "Let's go." Xiaomoyan thrust a card into her hand. "What is this?" Xiaoling took the card and looked at it over and over. Xiaomoyan said, "The interest on your pocket money over the years. Now you still have the fate of being single and widowed, and your family can't support you much. You can use this money first. If it's not enough, tell your brother and he will find a way." Xiaoling was missing her relatives at first, but she didn't expect such a benefit, so she was a little stunned for a moment. Should she receive the money? "Not much," Xiaomoyan said. "You are the phoenix in the family, and the misfortune you have suffered is borne by the entire family. This small amount of money is far less than the karma you bear. If you don't accept it, the whole family will suffer very sad." Hearing what he said, Xiaoling accepted the card. Xiaomoyan took her to the most high-end shopping mall in the city, a luxury flagship store with an elegant indoor environment and well-trained sales staff who maintained excellent etiquette. They went shopping one by one and bought some clothes, shoes, and jewelry. As expected, the woman couldn't hold back when she saw the beautiful clothes. Not long after shopping, Xiaoling's mood obviously improved a lot, and her whole body became full of energy. Xiaomoyan didn't let her swipe her card, so he took out his own card and swiped it for her, saying it was a little thought from being an older brother for so many years. Xiaoling rarely enjoyed the feeling of being pampered by her brother for a while, and she heard that her family was very rich, so she was not polite and made a big deal about her. It was so popular that even the salesperson whispered, "Which lady is that from, so wealthy?" "What kind of rich lady?" A salesperson looked at Xiaoling, who was wearing sunglasses in the distance. "Don't you see that all men are paying the bill? Maybe he is someone who is being raised. We see too many of these people all day long." "I don't think so," another salesperson said. "If someone really wanted to keep him, a man wouldn't be willing to spend so much money. Most of the time it's the first wife or someone who is still courting her." "That makes sense," everyone nodded. Xiaoling didn't hear these comments, and even if she heard them, she didn't care. There were so many people saying bad things about her, not just this few. She was very happy today and had left all Lilei's worries behind. She felt that she could live without love. He was just a man who bullied her. She didn't want to worry about him all day long. She ran, jumped, and spun in circles in the mall. Xiaomoyan put his hands in his trouser pockets and followed behind. She bought too many things, and he had already been very experienced in instructing the salesperson to deliver them to a fixed delivery address, and then the person there would transfer them to her home. The shopping mall is very large and has just been renovated. It is built like a maze. Xiaoling was like an adventurous child, looking around inside. Unknowingly, I walked into a store. The air was filled with the ambiguous scent of incense. On the display racks were pieces of lingerie, either in light red and dreamy, or in black stockings. Several female shop assistants smiled brightly. Her steps paused, feeling that this was not the place she should be, so she wanted to exit. Suddenly, she heard a somewhat familiar voice, "How about this one?" Doesn't it look too rough? She looked up and saw that it was Nangong Kinja, holding a rose-colored fishnet outfit in her hand. Well, it was the red light district style of a lower-class city. So it turns out that Nangong Kinja likes this. Xiaoling was shocked and looked at her dumbfounded. Sensing her gaze, Nangong Kinja also turned around, very displeased. Who is it? What are you looking at sneakily? Clerk, she said with a bit of anger to the clerk, aren't you just accepting customers at the same time? A customer? How could someone sneak in? The clerk's door was very unfair. The lady who sneaked in did not go through the main entrance. They didn't notice it for a moment. Miss, please wait outside for a moment, Before the clerks could say anything, Xiaoling had already taken off her sunglasses. Nangong Kinja, you were on a blind date with Li Lei the day before yesterday, and you want to buy these underwear today? I can't see that you are so flirtatious, and you are still dating Li Lei at the same time. Go out with other men and leave Li Lei as soon as possible, you hear me? She said fiercely. Li Lei and Nangong Kinja met just the day before yesterday. It is impossible for them to develop so quickly. The things Nangong Kinja bought are of no use to Li Lei. The only possibility is that she is still dating someone else at the same time. Xiaoling was already in a good mood today. Isn't it great to be able to deal with her love rival without any effort? Unfortunately, when Nangong Kinja saw that it was her originally angry and flustered face quickly returned to normal. She raised her head and said with a little reserve and arrogance, "Oh, how can I date other men? This dress is you should know who you are buying it for, Miss Yet. I would advise you to recognize your identity and don't have unrealistic dreams of flying up a branch and becoming a phoenix." Xiaoling's expression changed. What did Nangong Kinja mean? Could it be that she bought these clothes to show Li Lei? No, it's impossible. It's only been 2 short days. How could their progress be so fast? She looked at Nangong Kinja coldly. I don't allow you to buy it. That's ridiculous. What qualifications do you have to deny it? Nangong Kinja sneered coldly. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 573. Chapter 573 The War Between Bai Fume and Bai Fume. Xiaoling was speechless. She really has no qualifications. If someone buys her own clothes, why does it bother her? However, she couldn't swallow this breath. If this underwear was really worn for Li Lei, then what did Nangong Kinja and Li Lei think of her? She took out her mobile phone and wanted to call Li Lei to find out the matter. But suddenly I remembered that night in the dark container, he did such an outrageous thing to her. So far, he has not even received a phone call or apologized. Why do you want her to bow her head first? She put the phone back and looked at the fishnet dress in Nangong Kinja's hand. The ambiguous rose-red color seemed to be a big mockery, mocking her for not knowing her own capabilities. Suddenly, my interest waned. She turned around and walked out when she heard Nangong Kinja calling her. What, are you leaving now? If you can't afford it, don't come in. Some people don't even think about their own class. From the moment the two of them met, Nangong Kinja was of the same status, and Xiaoling couldn't help but feel a little angry. These people all relied on their rich family background to bully her, and relied on the protection of their father and brother. Isn't it amazing? She took out her credit card and threw it on the cashier. I want that one. She was referring to the one in Nangong Kinja's hand. Nangong Kinja was startled at first, and then, with a hint of disdain in her elegance, she smiled. You think that because I am reluctant to give up my love and refuse to give it to you, you justifiably don't have to pay, right? Here, take it. She threw the fishing net in her hand to Xiaoling as if it were trash. Xiaoling stepped aside and the fishnet outfit fell to the ground. Oh, this is the latest limited edition of the season, there are only 10 pieces in the world. The clerk hurriedly picked it up with a distressed look on his face. What should I do if such expensive clothes get stained? Nangang Kinja still smiled. Why don't you wrap it up for Miss Ye? She was a rich young lady, and she usually regarded herself as very high and noble. She had sworn a long time ago that she would never give up her first night unless she met true love. So, I am still a virgin, how can I tell the quality of lingerie? The reason why she took a fancy to this rose-red fishnet dress was simply because, the clerk said, this was the most expensive and high-end dress among all the clothes in the store. It was limited edition worldwide and had diamonds on the laces. The selling price is 6 figures. The clerk carefully quoted the price to Xiaoling. Xiaoling felt a sudden pain in her heart. Her money didn't come from the strong wind. How much money did it cost to buy a lingerie that was so ugly that she never planned to wear it in her life? However, even though my heart was bleeding, I couldn't lose my momentum on the surface and calmly said to the clerk, "Swipe your card." The clerk swiped her card and said, "I'll wrap the clothes for you." "No need," Xiaoling said, "I can use this kind of clothes as a rag because it's not absorbent. Only people like Miss Nangang, whose aesthetic taste is contrary to ordinary people, would like this kind of clothes. Throw this clothes in the trash can." Bar. Huh, although the clerk was well informed, he was also a little confused at this time. I've seen some fights against rich people, but it's really rare to see such a fight for rich people in a Qingchu underwear store. However, customers are the biggest in the world. In line with the principle of serving customers well, the clerk endured the pain and threw the fishnet suit that was displayed in the best cabinet in the store into the trash can. Nangang Kinja's expression was slightly distorted. This Yasingling dared to mock her like this? She snapped out her card and pointed at a dozen of the most expensive clothes in the store. This one, and this one, I want them all. Miss Ye, you still have money and me steal it. Provocation, this is Hongguokyo's provocation. Reason told Xiaoling that there was no need to fight with this kind of woman, but she really couldn't get angry. People live just for the sake of gratification. Yes, Xiaoling gritted her teeth and said, I want them all. She followed suit and stretched out her long, white fingers to point out many clothes to Nangang Kinja. Will Miss Nangang buy these? You can't afford them, right? Nangang Kinja smiled calmly and without blinking. Buy them all. What a joke, is this stupid woman trying to compete with her to see who is richer? She is the eldest daughter of the Nangang family, but she is still afraid of a female artist from a commoner background. With this thought, she smiled even more cheerfully and pointed out more clothes to Xiaoling. Xiaoling was a little bit stuck in a trap at this moment, knowing that if she continued like this, she would definitely lose. Seeing Nangang Kinja pointing out a lot of clothes to her, she gritted her teeth, sneered, and pointed out all the remaining clothes in the store to Nangang Kinja. It's just a store. Can Miss Nangang afford it? Nangang Kinja was smart and quickly guessed Xiaoling's intention. She smiled half-heartedly and said, I can afford it, but what I'm more curious about is, can Miss Ye afford it? What can't you afford? Xiaoling said calmly, Miss Nangang doesn't need to use provocation. It's your turn to buy it. If I buy it, how do I know that Miss Ye can afford it? Nangang Kinja didn't want to be fooled. She wanted to see Xiaoling make a fool of herself. I won't argue with Miss Ye this time. Just buy it. Xiaoling, Miss Nangang has given up. Nangang Kinja raised her eyebrows. How could I admit defeat? If you don't buy it, wouldn't you just admit defeat? Seeing that the situation was at a stalemate, the clerk didn't want the matter to escalate, so he quickly came out to break up the fight. Both of you have bought a lot of things today, so why not leave it like this? Our store will give you 2 VIP cards, and from now on. It seems that this is the only way. Xiaoling accepted it as soon as she could. Nangang Kinja was even more convinced that Xiaoling didn't have enough money and said, Miss Ye doesn't want to admit defeat, does she? I don't think it's better. Since we can all afford it, let's bid. The one with the highest price will get it. It's fair and reasonable. She quoted a price that was double the listed price of the clothes. Xiaoling's heart skipped a beat. This woman is so vicious. If she were really just an artist from a commoner background today, she would probably be embarrassed and lose her fortune. Even if her credit card was maxed out, she wouldn't be able to pay double the price. Fortunately, she had an older brother, who gave her a card. She threw the card to the clerk. Help me check how much money is in it. Seeing that the clerk couldn't persuade them, he had no choice but to investigate. The results of the investigation made the young female clerk gasp, "Oh my God! What's wrong?" Xiaoling asked. "Sorry," the clerk said nervously, "I'll try another machine." "I don't know if the card machine is broken." She hurriedly changed the machine. Hearing the clerk say this, Nangang Kinja laughed out loud. "Isn't this a useless card? Why, yes, Ling, your credit card limit is not enough, so you use the useless card to top up." End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 574. Chapter 574 is too exaggerated. Xiaoling knew that her brother would never give her a useless card. So, I just looked at Nangang Kinja calmly and said calmly, "Maybe the machine is broken." "Why is Miss Nangang so nervous? Just replace it with another machine." However, as soon as he finished speaking, the clerk said tremblingly, "Miss Ye, your card still can't be read. It's normal for us to read other cards. It's not that the machine is broken." Nangang Kinja laughed out loud. "Yes, Ling, why are you pretending? Do you want to use your useless card to get through? It's better to honestly admit that you are poor, and it won't be so embarrassing." Xiaoling frowned slightly. How could it be possible? My brother would never entertain her with a useless card. She said to the clerk, "If you check again, there is no way this is an invalid card." Nangang Kinja sneered at the side. "What else are you doing? I've seen people with swollen faces to pretend to be fat, but I've never seen people with swollen faces to pretend to be fat. It's so ridiculous." Haha, it really made me laugh to death. On her delicately made-up face, a layer of joy emerged, and his eyes flashed, full of arrogance and contempt. Xiaoling was so angry when she saw her that she couldn't help but said coldly, "Miss Nangang is so sure that this is a useless card? Do you dare to take a bet? If there is money in the card, do you dare to pay the price? Lost so much to me." She didn't know how much money her brother gave her, but since he said it was the interest on pocket money, she expected the amount wouldn't be too huge. It wasn't that she wanted to make Nangang Kinja's money, but she couldn't swallow it. Tone. Nangang Kinja's smile became even brighter. "Yes, Ling, are you crazy about money? You can't afford such a desperate gamble. Okay, I'll promise you, see if you can still use this. What kind of tricks can you play with waste cards? If there is really money in it, let alone losing it to you at the price, even if it is double or triple, it doesn't matter. Okay, then triple it." Xiaoling is the type who gets braver as she fights, and she really doesn't flinch when it comes to fighting. Since Nangang Kinja herself proposed 3 times, then 3 times would be good. She was just worried that the amount of interest on the pocket money would be too small to cause Nangang Kinja heartache. Just 3 times. Nangang Kinja smiled nonchalantly. "It's you, yes, Ling, what if you don't have any money in this card?" "What do you want?" Xiaoling asked. "It's very simple. If there is no money in the card, you can stay away from Li Lei in the future and never pester him again," Nangang Kinja said, suddenly feeling that this deal was a good deal and she could eliminate her love rival without any effort. Xiaoling was silent for a moment. "No, I won't bet on Li Lei." "You can change your bet." "Why, you dare not?" Nangang Kinja sneered. Even if I am sure of winning, I will not regard my relationship with him as a bargaining chip. Love is priceless, Yaling said every word seriously. Everyone in the small store was silent. The girl in front of her seemed to have a kind of magic when she spoke, and people couldn't help but admire her. Her love is priceless, and the man she falls in love with is very happy. For a moment, several store clerks who were watching the battle felt that although Nangang Kinja was a noble lady and Xiaoling was just an ordinary commoner, the latter was obviously the perfect match for second young master Li. Unconsciously, they began to support Xiaoling in their hearts. Nangang Kinja still thought she didn't dare, and said with a contemptuous smile, I want this bet, otherwise, you will never get triple the money. By the way, there is no money in your useless card, right? Otherwise, you will never get 3 times the money. The bet is cancelled. I will give you 3 times the value of all the goods in the store, and you will get out of Li Lei's sight. Is it important to have money? Xiaoling said calmly, I will give you 10 times the money. Miss Nangang, are you going to get out? Nangang Kinja didn't expect that she would turn against her, and her face changed color with anger. You are worthy enough. She took out her bank card and put it on the table. The money is here. If you have the ability, you can. If you can't win the bet, just kneel down and kowtow to me 3 times, and maybe I'll consider letting you go. Kneel down and kowtow, this is a great humiliation. But compared to using Li Lei's love as a bet, Xiaoling is obviously much easier to accept. It's a deal, she said. It's settled. Nangang Kinja's arrogant gaze swept across all the clerks present. You guys are all witnesses. Several clerks had no choice but to nod. Actually, they were also quite curious as to whether Xiaoling's card was a useless card. Xiaoling said to the clerk, go find another card reader and try again. It's useless, the clerk said, the card readers here are all the same model. Miss Ye, your card can't be read. One possibility is that it is an invalid card, and another possibility. What is another possibility? Xiaoling asked. The clerk said, there is another possibility that the amount exceeds the upper limit that we can read, so an error is reported. No way, it has exceeded the upper limit of what can be read. How much should it cost? Nangang Kinja couldn't help but ask, what is the upper limit of your credit card machine? 10 million, the clerk said. Ha, it's only 10 million, Nangang Kinja sneered, but Miss Ye doesn't look like someone who can carry 10 million in cash. Sure enough, the card is still useless. Xiaoling was also a little unsure. Her brother had said that this card only contained interest on pocket money. How could it be worth 10 million? Could it be that the card is really broken? She asked, then how do I detect this card? The clerk said, if the amount is too huge, I'm afraid you can only go to the bank counter to read it. Or, there is another way, call the telephone banking to inquire, and the balance inquiry system will automatically report the balance in the card for you. Nangang Kinja's tone was sarcastic, go to the bank counter? How troublesome it is to go back and forth. I think Miss Ye can just press the hands-free button here and directly check the balance. She was afraid that Xiaoling would take the opportunity to cheat. I put some money into the card or something, so I kept a close eye on her so that she wouldn't have any chance of cheating. Xiaoling didn't care. She actually made the inquiry call in front of them. She pressed the button on speakerphone, so everyone could hear it clearly. After a burst of prompts, a pleasant female voice came from the phone bank, you still have a balance of 10 billion yuan in your card. Please press 1 to listen again, and press 0 to return to the previous menu. What, 10 billion, everyone went crazy and suspected that they heard it wrong. Nangang Kinja's face turned even pale, how is that possible? Xiaoling herself was dumbfounded. She also wondered if she was hallucinating. She looked at the phone blankly and dialed again in a daze. It's still 10 billion. Xiaoling was completely shocked. Also stunned with her were all the clerks. One of them finally came back to his senses and murmured, "Oh my god, the bet that Miss Ye and Miss Nangong just made was a triple bet." In other words, this: if there is money in the card, Miss Nangong will pay Miss Ye 30 billion. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 575. Chapter 575 Repudiation. After being reminded like this by her, everyone remembered this. No matter how exquisite Nangong Kinja's makeup is, she can't hide the panic on her face. No, how can it be 10 billion? There must be an error in the system, it must be. Xiaoling calmed down at this time, remembering that her brother once said that even behemoths like the Pei family and the Li family might not be able to afford a betrothal gift equal to hers, so the more than 10 billion is probably not an exaggeration. She looked at Nangong Kinja calmly and half smiled. "If Miss Nangong doesn't believe it, you can come with me to the bank to verify the authenticity. However, if you are willing to admit defeat, don't miss the 3 times the promised gambling capital account." Nangong Kinja subconsciously wanted to go to the bank with her. However, after all, she was from a wealthy family. After a brief panic, she realized that the possibility of an error in the banking system was very slim. Even if she really went there, it would be embarrassing. Own. She calmed down and put on an arrogant posture. "Really, I said that the compensation would be tripled. Okay, you can come to my house to get it in a few days. Miss Nangong won't default on her debt, right?" Xiaoling looked at her suspiciously. "You must know that 30 billion is not a small sum. In her previous life, she was praised by Pei Ziyan as a world-famous queen. The total working capital in her card not so much. Although Nangong Kinja is the eldest daughter of a wealthy family, she may not be richer than she was in her previous life. Not to mention whether she can get the 30 billion, or even if she can, it is probably close to the entire net worth. Can I lie to you?" Nangong Kinja's face was still a little pale, and she was thinking wildly in her heart. Yes, although the Nangong family was a wealthy family, how could she have 30 billion as a daughter of a boudoir who did not give birth? Pocket money? I'm afraid even losing all her dowry and inheritance share wouldn't be enough. To put it bluntly, even if she is willing to spend all her personal money to repay her gambling debts, her family members will not be willing to do so. This cannot be done by just scolding her. I am afraid that her father, brothers, and sisters at home will not be willing to do so. I will be unable to hold my head up for the rest of my life. What's more, if you spend all your property in advance and become a penniless pauper, how can you marry a well-matched person? Let alone Li Lei, I'm afraid she can't afford to marry even Wang Tao." She secretly made up her mind to figure out a way to settle this matter within the next few days without spending a penny. The more anxious she felt inside, the calmer she became on the outside. She said arrogantly to Xiaoling, "Come to me to get the money in 1 month. 1 month, Xiaoling sneered, vaguely guessing that she was going to use the procrastination trick, and said, "Miss Nangong can't raise the money, right? How about this, just give me an IOU first, and will interest is calculated based on the bank's current period. 30 billion, which is a lot of interest per day." Nangong Kinja cursed her bitterly in her heart. Why is this woman so vulgar? The only thing you talk about is money. On the surface, he can only say bluntly, there is no need for IAS or anything like that. Don't I, Nangong Kinja, even have this bit of credibility? I'm sorry, you really don't have one here, Xiaoling said unceremoniously. Nangong Kinja's face turned pale again. This rude woman, a lower class person is a lower class person, how come she doesn't hide the naked smell of copper? She thought about it and felt that she couldn't change the subject, so she asked, "Where did Miss Ye get so much money? As far as I know, you can't make so much as a singer, or should you say, from Pei Ziyan and young Master Li. Where did you get it?" She just returned to China some time ago and didn't know Xiaoling's history at first, but later she regarded her as a love rival and investigated her specifically, and found out that she had divorced Pei Xian and fell in love with Li Lei not long after. Nangong Qinja, that money probably came from the divorce of the Pei family, and maybe Li Lei also subsidized it. With such a net worth, he could no longer be regarded as a commoner with a grassroots background. Nangong Qinja felt that it was necessary to re-examine this opponent. However, Xiaoling said, "What do you care about where I got this money?" "That's right," Nangong Qinja said with a contemptuous smile, "I'm always embarrassed to talk about money from improper sources." "Who do you think has improper sources of money?" At some point, a rather plain male voice intervened. Everyone turned around and saw a handsome and elegant man walking in the door. There was a faint color in the corners of his eyes and eyebrows, and his whole temperament looked very clean. The combination of the two made people feel impressive and mysterious. He walked slowly to Xiaoling's side. "Why did you end up in a place like this?" Although he said blaming words, there was no blaming tone. Xiaoling just wanted to call her brother, but suddenly remembered that he had told her to keep their relationship a secret. "So," she muttered unhappily, "why did you come here?" "I'm going to be bullied to death." Xiaomoyan looked at her with doting eyes. Who was bullying whom? When he looked at the richly dressed girl opposite him, he was about to cry after being bullied by her. He said calmly, "Why do people bully you?" "She owes me 30 billion and has no money to pay back." Xiaoling Xian was about to cry. Now, not only Xiaomoyan, but also all the store clerks present couldn't bear to look at it. It was obvious that this girl had earned 30 billion with her red lips and white teeth. When being said like this, it really seemed like Nangong Qinja was bullying her. "Got her." Xiaomoyan spoke calmly, with a hint of smile in the depths of her eyes, "Who said she has no money to pay back? If you don't have enough cash, you can use your family's property to pay off the debt, and the extra money will be used as mental compensation for you." Fee for mental damage. Even though Nangong Qinja usually boasted that Bingxiu was smart, she was a bit confused about this matter. What kind of fee for mental damage? "You made Xiaoling worry that you couldn't pay back the money." "You're so worried? Shouldn't you pay for mental damages?" Xiao said calmly and coldly. The same not-so-warm tone made people sound cordial when facing Xiaoling, but when talking to Nangong Qinja, it was inexplicably filled with a chilling chill. Invisible pressure. Nangong Qinja felt a little scared for some reason. This man seemed scary. However, the consequences were not as terrible as the consequences of her exporting 30 billion in property. Nangong Qinja gritted her teeth and said coldly, "You are blackmailing me. I will not give you this money." Xiaoling looked at her dumbfounded. Was she really going to default on her debt? "Are you not going to pay for mental damages, or are you not going to pay 30 billion, Xiaoling carefully verified. "Originally, I didn't plan to give you these 30 billion, just to do a good deed and help the poor that day, but who knew you were so pushy that you even tried to extort mental damages, so I didn't even give it to you," Nangong Qinja said slightly. He raised his chin and spoke in an extremely arrogant tone. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 576. Chapter 576, We Don't Understand the World of Rich People. Xiaoling didn't expect Nangong Qinja to be so careless. 30 billion, if you say you won't give it, you won't give it? Is it just a joke? She was about to cry again, and said unhappily, "How about a little honesty? You owe me money these days. It is indeed harder for debt collectors than debtors, oh. The shop assistants who were watching from the side also had a faint look of disdain in their eyes. The first provocation was Nangong Qinja, and she insisted on having everyone present to bear witness, just to prevent Xiaoling from not admitting her defeat. But, what about now? Nangang Qinja lost herself and was so shameless. Is it really okay? It turns out that Miss Nangong's integrity is only worth 30 billion. Ah, that's not right. The clerks felt that they had been brainwashed by Miss Ye and the young man with a calm tone. How could 30 billion be described as only worth it? It's obviously a huge sum of money, okay. A huge sum of money. They felt so sorry for Miss Nangong, who exactly had they offended? However, Xiaoling over there was still complaining about Xiaomoyan. It's all your fault, why did you interrupt me? I should have gotten 30 billion, Wu. Why do you want others to pay compensation for mental damage? Look at her, do you think you can afford it? 30 billion is enough to bankrupt you, okay. Now, people are starting to act rogue. 30 billion is money, right? Xiaomoyan said unjustly, the interest on your pocket money is already 10 billion. A group of shop assistants and Nangang Qinja were all shocked. No way, what did this man just say? 10 billion is the interest on pocket money. Are you kidding me? Everyone is messy in the wind. Xiaoling asked curiously, how much pocket money do I have? Xiaomoyan said, forget it, you won't be able to use it all anyway. The interest of 10 billion is just a round number I casually drew when I went out. There is still a lot of interest left at home. Everyone was dizzy again. This can no longer be described as a rich man, okay. Exaggerated, too exaggerated. I was also very curious, listening to the hidden meaning of the man's words. Could it be that he gave the 10 billion in the card to Miss Ye? Who is he to Miss Ye? Why is he so generous? Nangang Qinja's eyes were also filled with disbelief. She didn't believe that there was such a man in the world who would spend 10 billion just to give a woman the interest of pocket money. How much pocket money should he have? Impossible, absolutely impossible. Nangang Qinja shook her head. 10 billion is enough for her to compete with her sisters at home. This amount of money, which she considers extremely huge, is not even enough to cover the pocket money of a woman she despises. How can she be embarrassed? Stop pretending, Ye Xingling, Nangang Qinja said, I don't care where you got these 10 billion, or how you sang the double act with this man. Anyway, I can't possibly compensate you 100 million, aren't you pretending to be rich? Are you afraid of showing off your secrets when you compete for 30 billion? Xiaoling smiled slightly, the fact that I have money does not conflict with my rights to assert myself. Even if it is a meat bone, I am free to feed it to dogs. Who will get the dog to make the decision? Some of the shop assistants who were already watching laughed. This metaphor is so subtle. I'm afraid this is the first time that Miss Nangong has been compared to a dog in her life. However, isn't Miss Nangong's current words and deeds just like a mangy dog? I don't even understand the reason why I am willing to accept defeat in a bet, but I still do it so confidently. Hearing the clerk's laughter, Nangang Qinja wanted to dig into a crack in the ground. This was indeed the first time in her life that she had been humiliated like this. She couldn't help but get angry. Ye Xingling, watch your words. Common people are common people, a little education no one, how can you talk? Before Xiaoling said anything, Xiaomoyan's expression on the side had already darkened slightly. Who dares to call his sister uneducated? Xiaoling's life has been very hard since she was born. She has shouldered the karma of the entire family's destiny. She has had 2 rough lives and has been displaced. She is not allowed to reunite with her father and brother, and she cannot even recognize her biological son. The suffering she has suffered has made him, as the heir to the Xia family, feel very guilty. He regrets that he cannot raise her by his side and watch her grow up. He cannot shelter her from wind and rain. Now, he still has to listen to others ridiculing her for being uneducated. It's not Xiaoling's fault. What's more, she is now clear and bright, and has a kind heart. Why is she being said like this? He raised his head and looked at Nangong Kinja with a sharper look in his eyes. Education? Miss Nangong will soon lose these two words. Nangong Kinja was startled. What do you mean? This man who looked cold and cold always made her feel a little wary in her heart for some reason, as if there was a chill flowing through her, with nowhere to avoid it and unable to fight back. She felt vaguely that this man was scary. However, now that she was riding a tiger, she could only look at him arrogantly. Besides, her Nangong family was extremely powerful, so she didn't believe that this man really had the ability to do something to her. He was probably just bluffing. Xiaomoyan didn't say much. He lowered his head and said to Xiaoling, "Let's go." Xiaoling whispered, "My 30 billion. Xiaomoyan laughed a little. This girl is really a little money lover. 30 billion, plus mental damages, not a penny less. Xiaomoyan took her hand and dragged her out. With me here, what are you worried about? I'm worried that you are too lazy to bother with this little money. Xiaoling felt aggrieved. The two of them drifted away from each other, but the vague conversation still made everyone in the store look embarrassed. What is this little money? We don't understand the world of rich people. By the way, Xiaomoyan dragged her a few steps, then turned around and threw out a card to the clerk. Miss Yes, purchases just now have been charged to my account. After all the clothes are packed, they will be delivered to me. This address. He took out a pen and paper, wrote an address in smooth and elegant handwriting, and handed it to the clerk. The clerks had not yet recovered from the shock, so they responded somewhat sluggishly. Xiaoling stood at the door of the toy shop and waited for her brother for a while. When she saw him coming out, she complained, "I told you not to swipe my card for me. What's wrong with you buying those clothes for me? It's embarrassing just thinking about it." Xiaomoyan still had a cold face. "Is it important?" "It's very important. What should I wear?" Classmate Xiaoling went crazy. She was wearing underwear given by her brother. It was so, she couldn't think of any adjectives. The question is, can you wear it? Xiaoling was suddenly at a loss for words. Yes, even if her brother hadn't given it to her, she would probably never touch these things that she bought through fighting with others. Forget it, she slumped her shoulders and let out a long sigh. "I'm so angry. I want to eat ice cream. You go buy me ice cream." Xiaomoyan took out the sunglasses from her pocket and put them on her casually. "What else are you eating ice cream? Didn't you see so many people looking at you?" This girl was confused by the quarrel she just had. She even changed her mind. She even forgot to pretend. She was now a little diva, very popular, and she was recognized in just a short time. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 577. Chapter 577. Is it Pei Zion? Xiaoling looked around belatedly. Sure enough, there were people in twos and threes pointing at her and whispering something to their companions. She was most afraid of encountering this kind of situation in public, and it might lead to a riot, so she quickly took Xiaomoyan's hand and ran away. Xiaomoyan drove her to the villa and said, "You have a good rest. I will come see you in a few days." "Where are you going?" When Xiaoling heard that her brother was leaving, she tugged at his clothes, reluctant to let him go. Xiaomoyan sighed softly. "There are some things that need to be dealt with. Suinman matters are complicated and unpredictable, and he doesn't want his sister to know too much. Having a glimpse of destiny is a kind of karma, and you have to pay a price." Seeing that he refused to say anything, Xiaoling stopped asking any more questions and said pitifully, "Then you must come back to see me." "Must. Lego." Xiaomoyan silently stretched out her little finger. Xiaoling's face suddenly lit up with a big smile, and she hooked up with him. "Must come back." The girl's clear voice made Xiaomoyan feel sad. How lonely must she be that she yearns so much for the company of a brother she has never met a few times. Huangming is lonely and widowed. How did she, a little girl, survive so many ups and downs and twists and turns? Xiaomoyan lowered his head slightly, concealed the emotions in his heart, and turned to leave. Xiaoling watched him at the door. Knowing that her brother's slender figure could no longer be seen at the end of the winding red wall and gravel path, she turned around and entered the door. The villa was very quiet and empty, because the move was in a hurry, and many things happened later, and now there is not even a decent home. It's really not nice, she sighed softly. Unexpectedly, she thought of Lilei's apartment, which was once filled with her penguin pillows and bunny dolls, as well as fashion magazines, snacks, and music scores littered around the world. I wonder what has become over there now? And Mao Tuanzi and Er Mao, are they obedient? She was in a daze, and she couldn't help but think of the owner of the apartment. Handsome and deep facial features, with a bright smile shining in his eyes. He was her sunshine. But, what about now? Her heart ached, remembering the gentle and polite way he treated Nangang Kinja at the blind date party not long ago, and the ugly scene in the container during the outdoor shooting that night. Is it true that the other party is a rich young lady and should be treated seriously, while she, who seems to be just a helpless commoner singer, can be insulted and humiliated casually? She didn't know where the warm Lilei had gone. What else do you want from him, she murmured to herself, it's been 2 days and he hasn't even called. Are you stupid, Xiaoling, for not giving up? I shook my head, trying to erase him from my mind, but all I could think about was his appearance. Just when she was restless, the doorbell rang. Xiaoling thought her brother was back and ran to open the door. However, 2 delivery boys appeared at the door. They said to her politely, "Miss Ye?" "Hello, we are Hiu private firm. Yes, these are the various goods you bought in the mall today, and we delivered them to you." Xiaoling then remembered that her brother had sent someone to forward it today. She let them in, and the 2 courier boys unloaded the goods quickly and methodically, then said goodbye to her very politely and left. Xiaoling squatted in the living room to unpack the express delivery. There were all kinds of brand-name bags, dresses, jewelry, and many other things that she had forgotten what they were bought for. After flipping through it, I found a pile of fishnets, leather skirts and lace. The pile was too high, and the rose red, dark purple, and mysterious black suddenly tilted out and fell on her, almost engulfing her petite body. She responded for 2 seconds. When she took off the thing on her head, she saw that it was a piece of... well, it was a trophy from the toy store where she had a feud with Nangang Kinja. She forgot to tell her brother not to send it home. What was she doing with it? Ah! Xiaoling is very melancholy. The doorbell rang again. Xiaoling thought it was the courier boy who had forgotten something, so she absent-mindedly went out to open the door. However, as soon as she reached the door, she froze. At sunset, an extremely handsome man stood under the red flower wall, with deep features and deep eyes. Exactly. Lilei, she whispered softly. He finally remembered to take the initiative to find her, just when she thought he would never show up again. For a time, many ups and downs surged into Xiaoling's heart, and thousands of thoughts finally turned into softness. Fortunately, he came. Lilei looked at her silently for a few seconds from across a yard, then pushed open the low fence and walked in. Xiaoling turned sideways and let him enter the house, but she forgot one thing: the house was full of unpacked trophies, including bags, jewelry, and a lot of lingerie. Lilei looked down at the pile of fishing nets and lace on the ground. Xiaoling was a little embarrassed. "Well, is everything said online true?" Lilei's voice showed no emotion. "Ah, what?" Xiaoling was stunned. She hadn't been online all day today and couldn't understand what he was talking about. "It was said online that someone saw you and a man going to the Chu underwear store, and the man gave you a lot of Chu Chew underwear. Xiaoling's breath suffocated, and she remembered that when she left the mall this afternoon, how could those people be so gossipy and put this on the internet? I didn't. She gritted her teeth and wanted to explain to Lilei, but she had so many words to say that she didn't know where to start. Who is that man? Lilei stared into her eyes, his voice a little deep. I. The word brother was about to blurt out, and Xiaoling suddenly remembered that her brother had once told her not to reveal their relationship. She was at a loss for words and started to sweat a little anxiously. Don't listen to the nonsense people on the internet are talking about. Oh? Please tell me why they are talking nonsense. Lilei was calm and his tone was slow. Xiaoling's heart was pounding. He looked a little scary like this. She couldn't see his mood and anger, and she didn't like this feeling of uncertainty. I didn't go shopping with any man. She was confused and said a very stupid thing. Xiaoling, do you think I'm a fool? Sure enough, Lilei stared at her deeply. Do you think you can fool me by just making up lies? Tell me, is that person Pei Zion? Only Pei Zion could accompany her to the underwear store so intimately. Only Pei Zion could arouse the boiling jealousy in his heart. Xiaoling was frightened by his thoughts. She opened her lips and found her voice, trembling slightly. Lilei, who do you think I am? End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 578. Chapter 578 Sweet Candy. Who do I think you are? Lilei looked at her, his voice full of regret. Xiaoling, you should ask yourself, who do you think you are? Can you go to a lingerie store with anyone? She looked pale and looked at him with trembling lips, speechless. Being said so badly by the man she loved made her want to dig into a crack in the ground. However, this matter was really just a mistake. If she really wanted to blame it, she could only blame her for not looking at the road when she was shopping in the mall. I don't know. Why did you break into that store? It turns out that not looking at the road is such a big mistake. Tears gradually accumulated in her eyes, as if she became very tearful after being with him. In the past, it was for other things, but recently it was because of the pain between them. Lilei felt a dull pain in his heart when he saw her tears, but this kind of matter involved the bottom line of principle. Jealousy was like a fire, burning so hard that he could barely maintain his sanity. He asked coldly, is it Pei Zion? No, she cried. Who is that? He suddenly lost his patience and shouted, yes, Yingling, you don't even bother to make up lies. Do you really think I'm stupid? You two slept together the night before yesterday. I went to visit a store like that again this afternoon. If you want to return to Pei Zion's arms, yes, Yingling, just say so. She looked at him in disbelief. What did he say? Fulfill her? Did Lilei no longer want her, got tired of her, and fell in love with Nangang Kinja? So, would Nangang Kinja say that the lingerie she bought this afternoon was for Lilei to see, and would Lilei find an excuse to end it with her completely? Tears slid down her cheeks, and she finally found her voice, you are the one. If you don't want me, just say so. There is no need to use such a crime to offend others. Lilei laughed angrily, I have tried my best to love you, pamper you, and be tolerant to you in every possible way, but I didn't expect that you are now getting more and more pushy and do such a thing yourself, but instead you accuse me of being a travesty, like him. What kind of woman does a man want? She was allowed to tolerate a woman who had given birth to a child with someone else but could no longer be pregnant. It doesn't matter, he likes Xiaoling, but she shouldn't continue to crawl into other people's beds. Is Pei Zion really that good? He approached her step by step. Are you so fascinated that you don't even care about your face or moral integrity? He reached out to lift her chin, lowered his head, and was about to kiss her. It is a lie to say that he would let her go free. Now he just wants to find a chain to lock her up like Pei Zion did a few years ago, so that she can be isolated from the world and never hear or see anyone other than him. Let her world, he was the only one left. He understood Pei Xian a little. People who fall in love with Xiaoling are very pitiful and can only become crazy in the end. His lips kissed hers fiercely, demanding without mercy. She struggled and beat him hard. Humiliation and fear made her desperately want to escape. She didn't know where the strength came from, but she suddenly broke away and stumbled upstairs. Li Lei followed behind in stride. "Don't come over." She ran into the bedroom and found that there was no way to retreat. She opened the window in a hurry. "If you come over again, I will jump out. This is a very good villa, with a high foundation for the sake of beauty and moisture-proof pads. The indoor ceiling is also high. The second floor is already 3 stories high in an ordinary residential area." Xiaoling glanced downstairs and felt a little dizzy, but Li Lei approaching step by step was even more terrifying, and she couldn't help but shrink back to the window sill. "I really jumped," she said while crying. Li Lei's footsteps stopped. Xiaoling is very childish and sometimes impulsive. It is not impossible for her to jump when she is pushed. He looked at her deeply, looking at this woman who would rather jump than kiss him. The pain in his heart came back, as if an invisible giant hand dug out his heart. "Come out and crush it into pieces." "Come here," he said in a deep voice, suppressing his discomfort. "I don't." Her voice was still trembling, but she didn't give an inch. The last rays of the setting sun dimmed from the horizon, and there was huge darkness behind her, making her whole person even thinner and weaker. She was like a little animal that climbed up a tree and couldn't get down. Even though she was so scared, she still looked at people warily, ready to risk her life at any time. Li Lei's heart ached even more, and he couldn't explain why. "If you don't come here," he said slowly, word by word, "you'll never come here again." This is the second time he has broken up with her since he entered the house, and he is frustrated. Maybe Pei Xian is her true love, so just let her go and find Pei Xian. He is Li Lei, but he is not so despicable that he can endure being cuckolded continuously. Xiaoling's tears fell even harder, but her fingers clenched tightly on the window frame without moving. She didn't dare to go over. His look was too scary. She didn't know what she would face if she went over. In a daze, the fear that he felt when he was imprisoned by Pei Xian in his previous life came back. In fact, he felt that way the last time he was violated by him in the container, as if everything about him was involuntary and he was a toy at the mercy of others. She never wants to do that again. Li Lei waited for her for a while, and when he saw that she didn't move, he slowly turned around and left. Especially since God only gave them a few years of fate, and they have been together less and apart in these few years, maybe they are really destined to be together but not destined to be together. She watched his back disappear outside the door, lowered her head again, looked at the courtyard door with tears, and watched him walk out step by step, his back lonely and lonely. This time, will we be separated forever? She can no longer hug him unscrupulously, can no longer rub shoulders with him, can no longer eat the sweet and delicious food he cooked, and can no longer. Her body softened little by little, and she hugged her knees with her hands, curled up on the floor, and cried for a long time. She hates herself. Why is she Sinke, a lonely and widowed woman with a phoenix destiny? If it weren't for that, would it be possible to reveal his brother's identity and Li Lei wouldn't be so angry? She hated herself again. Why didn't she have the courage to walk over when he said come here? Could it be that if they walked over and accepted his kiss or even went further, these problems between them would disappear? She hates herself. Why can't she bear it? She regretted why she didn't call Li Lei, but if she really called him, if time went back, wouldn't she still have the courage to walk over, and not have the courage to nestle into his arms like before? She is afraid. Feeling aggrieved and afraid. Tears fell on the floor drop by drop, gathering into a small puddle at my feet. I cried until my body was exhausted. Suddenly, I smell the sweet smell in the air. It is a familiar, sweet, candy flavor. Do I look like such a cruel person? Look, sugar, say after me, sugar. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Sci-fi. Chapter 579. Chapter 579. It's big and sweet. She raised her head with red and swollen eyes. What came into view was a big, fluffy, pink marshmallow, and behind the marshmallow was Lilay's extremely handsome face. A man with a strong figure, slightly exposed muscles, squatted awkwardly in a small corner of the bedroom, holding a soft and cute marshmallow in his hand, which had a strange sense of dissonance. There was no light on in the bedroom, and the moonlight filtered in. She sniffed and couldn't react. Wasn't she dumped? Here Lilay said, stuffing the marshmallow into her palm. What are you doing? She stopped crying, feeling a little muffled. You are not allowed to be with Payzian, he said. After a quarrel with her, Lilay couldn't bear it anymore and decided to break up this time. However, he regretted it as soon as he walked out of the villa. How did he make a vow before? To protect Xiaoling from being hurt again, the day she stops loving him, she can be with anyone, but that person cannot be Payzian. Payzian imprisoned her and humiliated her, how could he let her go back again? Passing by a small stall selling marshmallows, he stood on the side of the road in a daze, watching the old woman making marshmallows. The sweet strawberries and white sugar were mixed together, and the pink strands had a refreshing aroma. He remembered that this was her favorite candy, and the good times the two had spent together. Young man, buy one for your girlfriend, the old woman said cheerfully. Lilay did not move. What's wrong, young man? Did you have a quarrel with your girlfriend? The old woman was still cheerful. Lilay's voice was bitter. We broke up. When he said these 3 words, he felt heartbreaking pain. The old woman looked at him carefully. Why did you break up? I see that you still care about that girl. If you like her, go and get her back. There is no such store after this village, and you are giving others an advantage. This simple and straightforward persuasion made Lilay feel like he was enlightened. Yes, why should he benefit others in vain? He said, old lady, give me a marshmallow, a big, sweet one. Okay, the old woman said with a smile. That's right. She made him a big, sweet cake with her hands and feet quickly, and let him carry it back to the villa. At this time, Lilay looked at Xiaoling, who was holding a marshmallow in her hand. The soft and fluffy marshmallow almost covered most of her face, and the tip of her nose was exposed, with a light pink stain on it. He stretched out his hand and scraped her nose. Did you hear that? Xiaoling, who had buried her little head in the marshmallow and felt the sweet smell, her mood, which had just improved a little, fell again, and tears gathered in her eyes again. She took Lilay's hand that was scraping the marshmallow for her and bit down the back of his hand. This bite was very deep, and sweet blood flowed out and poured into her mouth. She did not let him go, still biting him. Lilay was in pain, but he didn't move his hand and let her bite her tightly. In fact, he was the one who wanted to bite. He wanted to pack up this woman who was not familiar with the man next door and throw her into bed, teach her a lesson and let her know who is the real master. He looked at her fair and smooth-side face, and his breathing became a little heavy. She bit him for a long time before her teeth slowly let go of him. Sure enough, there was a row of neat tooth marks on his palm. They were too deep and they would probably leave scars even after they healed. She still cried, "You bastard!" Lilay was speechless. She was obviously the one biting, so why did she become his bastard? Why are you imitating a puppy? He raised her chin and looked at it. then wiped the blood on the corners of her lips with his fingers. After looking at it for a few times, he couldn't wipe it clean. Instead, her face was covered with tears and blood. All spent. Lilei thought, would Pei Zian want her like this? It's better to be a little uglier to stop her from climbing the wall. So, he wiped his finger on her cheek twice more. She sobbed and said, I have never slept with Pei Zian, why did you wrong me? Thousands of grievances came to her heart. She thought of her previous life, when she was not trusted by her beloved, and she couldn't do anything with all her words. Explain clearly that he did not murder Wang Jingguan. How can the person she loves question her character? So, she was so hateful that she wanted to bite off a piece of meat from him. Lilei said, Ah! I've never slept with him. This time, she yelled loudly with a cry, Lilei, you bastard! You bastard! You bastard! Only then did he understand why she bit him. When my heart was in full bloom, these words were like the sound of nature. But wait a minute, you just admitted to sleeping with him that day. You believe what I say when I'm angry. She was about to cry again. If you hadn't bullied me like that in the container that day, how could I have said such words to make you angry? It's all your fault, it's all your fault. Lilei is not a good person. Is that really an angry statement? He asked cautiously. That morning, he was in your bedroom wearing pajamas, and you were lying on the bed with nothing on. What happened? Xiaoling was stunned. I don't understand what you are talking about. Lilei was a little crazy. The day you caught a cold and fell ill, when you woke up in the morning, you saw me and Pei Zian talking. Wasn't he wearing pajamas at the time? It has to be said that although Pei Zian is already an uncle-level figure, but his body was so well trained that Lilei had the urge to kill him. Xiaoling was still in a daze. Did he wear pajamas? I didn't notice she was so sick that day that she was in a daze, so who could remember what Pei Zian was wearing? But, why is he in my house wearing pajamas? The two of them stared at each other, and suddenly, they both realized a problem. Pei Zian, what a scheming uncle. Xiaoling, tell me what happened that day from beginning to end. Xiaoling straightened her thoughts. I sprained my ankle the night before. He gave me medicine and then went back. When I woke up the next morning, I saw you two arguing. It's that simple. Lilei fainted. Could it be that he was really tricked by Pei Zian? When I entered the bedroom, I saw you lying on the bed with the quilt on you, and you seemed to be wearing nothing underneath. That's why he was so jealous. No, Xiaoling said, I was having a hard time that day. I went to bed without taking off my evening gown. By the way, that evening gown was strapless. Doesn't it look like she wasn't wearing anything? Lilei. So, is this the truth? He suddenly had the urge to slap himself twice. Why did he misunderstand Xiaoling like this? If I could have explained it clearly at that time, wouldn't these things that happened later have happened? He brought the marshmallow to her mouth. You have been wronged, eat the candy. I won't eat. She turned her head away proudly. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 580. Chapter 580. She fully expected that Lilei would coax her. Unexpectedly, Lilei turned his head and took a bite of the marshmallow and said, Don't want to eat it? Then I'll eat it, and you can tell me what's going on with the lingerie. Xiaoling stared at him. Why is this person so excessive? You even grabbed her marshmallows to eat, when you were just listening to a story? She grabbed the candy from his hand and took a big bite, then said inarticulately, Why should I tell you when you took the candy from me? She became arrogant again. Lilei silently looked at the candy in her hand and knew that this girl was protective of her food. She was energetic when she saw the food, and her guard was low when her true nature was revealed. So, he asked seductively, Tell me who he is, Cotton, you can get as much sugar as you want, the big bad wolf coaxes the little rabbit. Xiaoling I was unprepared and said, he is mine. Almost spilled the beans again. Suddenly she came to her senses and swallowed the candy in her mouth. His identity really cannot be said. Seeing that Li Lei's expression was not good, she quickly added, it's not that I don't want to tell you, but I promised him to keep it a secret. He said it was for my own good. For your own good. Li Lei's tone contained a hint of gentle danger. It seems that that man has a close relationship with Xiaoling, and Xiaoling trusts him very much. When did such an important man appear in her life and he knew nothing about it? Xiaoling felt guilty for some reason and shrank slightly. Well, actually, I don't quite understand what he meant. How about, I'll ask if I can tell you when I see him next time. Next time, see him. Li Lei was even more unhappy. Is this the end? He gave you underwear this time. What will be your purpose next time I see you? It's really not what you think. Xiaoling felt like she couldn't explain clearly. Actually, I met Nangong Kinja in the underwear store today, and I bought so much because of a fight with her. That man just helped me pay. It seems to be getting darker and darker. Li Lei had a serious face and considered whether he should have an attack. How could his own woman accept such things from other men? However, he felt that it was useless to have an attack. What could he do to Xiaoling? Have another fight and then go out and buy a marshmallow? I will transfer money to your account regularly every month. After much deliberation, Li Lei only had this stupid solution: you are not allowed to use other men's money. Actually, I have money. Xiaoling said weakly. What are you doing with that little money? Li Lei said to her. Why was she rejected every time he wanted to give her money? If she doesn't develop the habit of spending money like water and having to take money from him, what can he do to tie her down? Li Lei was not calm. Why wasn't she a money-grubbing girl? Xiaoling hesitated whether to tell him that she had 10 billion. That's it. Li Lei didn't give her a chance to object. I will give you 5 million every month. You can buy whatever you like. If you don't have enough, ask me for it. In short, you are not allowed to use other men's money. Xiaoling swallowed the 10 billion thing silently. For no other reason, she simply couldn't figure out how many months it would take to get together 10 billion if she was given 5 to 5 million a month. No matter how stupid she is, she still knows that men are very proud in this regard, so it's better not to say it to irritate Li Lei. She doesn't like to use men's money because Pei Xian cast too many shadows on her in her previous life, making her have the illusion that she is attached to someone and can never escape. The 10 billion that Xia Moyan said were different. They were given by his parents and brothers. She made a decision silently in her heart. If Li Lei loved to give it, she would save it all. Anyway, the 10 billion given by her brother would be enough to spend until the end of the world, so Li Lei should mistakenly think that she was spending his money. Oh, okay, she reluctantly agreed. Classmate Li Xiaoli, I was not happy. You have money and you still have this expression on your face. I almost can't find the motivation to climb to the top of the music industry and become a queen, she whispered. How much can she charge for a concert? Her annual income is probably at this level, so why should she work? Li Lei laughed and said, I'll support you. I don't. Classmate Xia Xiaoling became arrogant again. I will support you. She now has 10 billion women, which is more than enough to support the daily life of 2 people. Li Lei thought she was joking. Okay, wait until you make a lot of money. Xiaoling didn't explain, and then thought of another thing. I will have a concert next week, please remember to come and see me live. Definitely Li Lei knew the time of her concert a long time ago. For this reason, a small-scale conflict broke out with Grandpa. Grandpa calculated the time that day and asked him to accompany him to Nangong's house as a guest. He was righteous and stern. They refused and said, Grandpa, I promise to cooperate with you on the blind date, but you must also leave some free space for Xiaoling and me. Rabbits will bite when cornered. Be careful that I will never see Nangong Kinja again. Mr. Li was very angry, but there was nothing he could do about his grandson. The grandfather and grandson are testing each other's bottom line when it comes to choosing a marriage partner, and there is a tug of war without smoke at all times. This time, Mr. Li was defeated. He puffed his beard and threatened to expel Xiaoling from Tianyi. Li Lei laughed, "Grandpa, are you going to interfere with my industry?" There are two types of industries in his hands, one is inherited from the family abroad, and the other is the country he has established at home. The Li family does not according to the written rules, whoever kills it belongs to the same person, and even the elders and clan leaders have no right to interfere. Mr. Li had no choice but to sulk on his own. Li Lei gave him a ticket to the concert, VIP box. "Grandpa, Xiaoling is really good. If you have time, come and listen to her." The old man was so angry that he almost beat him. "I won't go." Li Lei put the ticket there and left. At this time, he said to Xiaoling, "Xiaoling, you must behave well. My grandpa will come to see you that day." Xiaoling was stunned. "Old man? Doesn't he hate me very much?" Li Lei smiled and said, "He is a bit fierce, but he is still a nice person. Although he is a little prejudiced against you, he is not particularly annoying. He will still care about you and come to see you. Actually, where is the reason?" But Li Lei knew his grandfather too well. Grandpa must have known that Li Lei would go to the concert. In order to prevent him from being seduced by Xiaoling, he would probably go to the scene and keep an eye on him. Besides, Mr. Li also wanted to know more about Xiaoling and find out what methods she used to seduce his precious grandson. "I will definitely explore the enemy's situation." Li Lei is very confident. When Xiaoling sings, her whole body radiates light. Everyone who sees her will fall in love with her. Her charm on the stage is unstoppable. Grandpa will definitely change his mind about her. End of this chapter.